And joining me now is Speaker of the Maine House of Representatives, Ryan Fecteau. Ryan, thank you so much for your time today. I think it's safe to say that this shooting has shaken your community, but what are the biggest questions you believe still need to be answered after what happened?
Well, I think there's an inconsistency in just what we heard in that report. And on the one hand, we were told that the driver was putting an officer or law enforcement at risk, and now we have this statement from DHS that says, well, there was a risk to public safety, and there's an inconsistency right off the bat. Is it the case that someone's life was at risk in law enforcement, or is it the case that the general public's safety was at risk? I think that's an important detail that needs to be determined. Overall, our community is reeling from this. We're a community that has a long history of welcoming immigrants. We will continue to welcome immigrants to our community. My grandparents, and my dad moved from Quebec in 1964 to work in our textile mills at the heart of our city. We are an immigrant community.
We know the FBI, the State Attorney General, and DHS, they're all now investigating the shooting. Lawmakers have said the man who was killed was not the person ICE was looking for in the first place. So what does a thorough and transparent investigation look like to you?
Well, a full and transparent investigation would include continued cooperation between federal officials and our state officials who have been on the scene, gathering details as well. I think that's incredibly important that our state officials have the ability to gather the details necessary to make sure that justice is served here, and that we have a full picture of why this occurred and why lethal force was used against someone who wasn't even the target of this ICE operation. I think that is the most despicable part of this whole thing, is that Mr. Guerrero, his life was taken, a father was taken, a husband was taken, who wasn't even the target of this operation.
Yeah, and Ryan, what are your constituents telling you? What would they like to see happen in this case?
Well, I think what they want first and foremost is to ensure that there's a proper and full investigation. That's what I've been hearing from my constituents. But most importantly, what they want is for ICE to get out of the state of Maine. We want ICE out of our state. We want local and state law enforcement to do their jobs, which they do well. They know our communities, they know our streets, they know the people who live here. We want local and state law enforcement to continue to do the job that they do really well. And we want ICE in their unprofessional behavior, their poor training and all that comes with it, and these rash decisions that they're making in these moments where they are using lethal force. We want them out of our state.
And can you tell us more about the city and this area? I mean, you say that you all welcome immigrants. Is something like this, the shooting itself, is that unusual there? And even to have ICE agents in the area, is that unusual? Was that shocking to you?
Yeah, I mean we're a large city in terms of Maine's context, but we're a small town in almost any other context in this country, right? And this is not this is just a very unusual occurrence for there to be any sort of violence of this magnitude is just totally out of the norm for our community. And like I said, this is a community that has long welcomed immigrants. We were founded by immigrants, and we're going to continue to welcome folks from across the world to our state, because this is exactly who we are. We've always been welcoming, and we should continue to do so. I think it's important to also take a moment to recognize that we also have a long history of telling people who are trying to oppress others to get gone. In 1924, the KKK tried to cross the bridge into my city, and people met them on the bridge and told them to take a hike. And we're saying that now to ICE. We're telling them to get out of our city, get out of our state. We want to be able to do what we do best, which is to take care of one another, look out for our neighbors, and I guess in the words of Fred Rogers, tell people, won't you be our neighbor?
Representative Ryan Fecteau, again, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it.
It's been a very long time, but I began my career as a journalist covering police news. Did so as a newspaper reporter in 3 different cities. In my experience, for what it's worth, fatal officer-involved shootings were a universal tragedy for the victim and those who love the victim, of course, but also for the officer who pulled the trigger. As I said, it has been decades since I did this work, but I do not believe humanity has changed much since then. Officers, local, state, or federal, do not by nature want to kill people, and their work is obviously dangerous. But tactics, training, leadership, then as now, matter. And the difference in those spaces can be the difference between life and death. And yet 9 people in our country have been killed by federal immigration officers under President Trump's aggressive immigration enforcement in his second term. 2 were American citizens. Others generally had deep ties to their communities. Many had no criminal record outside of their undocumented status. Some had permission to work here. 9 people killed on the streets of America. Accountability? At the moment, that is no more than a rumor. As an example, it took officials in Minnesota until yesterday to obtain evidence from the federal government in the killings of American citizens Renee Good and Alex Pretty. Both were killed in January. State officials in Maine and Texas, like those in Minnesota, are demanding evidence about ICE-involved killings last week in Houston and yesterday in Biddeford. In both cases, the men killed in Maine, Johann Sebastian Duran Guerrero, 25, of Colombia, and in Houston, Lorenzo Salgado Araujo, 52, of Mexico, were not the target of enforcement actions. Neither had criminal records. Our Camilo Montoya Galvez spoke today with the district attorney overseeing the Houston case.
After the investigation plays out, and if you find criminal wrongdoing, are you planning and are you prepared to prosecute federal agents?
As we go forward, and if the case and the evidence directs us that criminal wrongdoing occurred, we are more than prepared to file criminal charges against the people, regardless of whether or not they're federal agents or civilians. You can't come into our community, take someone's life, and then hide behind a badge.
In neither case that I just mentioned, Houston, Texas, or Biddeford, Maine, did ICE officials wear body cameras. Disputes about what happened and the threat posed to ICE agents have only deepened the sense of revulsion over current ICE tactics.
It's a tragedy on several levels. It's a tragedy for the family of this young man who was killed unnecessarily. It's a tragedy for our country that we're going through this process that's based on a phony premise. The whole premise of this has been the worst of the worst. Well, in Maine last winter, they arrested over 200 people. 19 of them had criminal records. That means 90% of the people arrested had no criminal records.
Today, the Department of Homeland Security paused vehicle stops as part of removal operations. ICE had used vehicle stops after surveilling those subject to removal. And they did, though, especially in cases where they did not have legal permission to enter a residence. And it frequently uses unmarked cars in these enforcement actions, which adds to confusion and fear on the streets. Demands to meet deportation quotas add pressure to these removal operations and, by their very nature, increase the risk of mistakes, sometimes fatal ones. And the Trump administration has resisted efforts of states and localities to investigate independently fatal ICE-involved shootings. Here's Maine Senate Republican Susan Collins.
What you can't have is ICE investigating itself. It would be helpful and add even more credibility if the state police were involved in the investigation, so I support that.
We begin tonight in Maine with Lilia Luciano. Lilia, walk us through what we're learning about the shooting and what's happening at the state level.
Major, you bring such an important point. The lack of those body cameras make these investigations extremely difficult. I have been talking to locals who were witnesses either because they heard the shooting or people who rushed out after to try and piece together what happened. We were able to obtain one video from a local pawn shop where the owners have a Ring camera video. We are seeing those images of the car that Guerrero was driving, the car that, according to a neighbor who tells me, because he knew Guerrero and knew some of the other Colombian members of the community, he says that this car may have belonged to the person who ICE may have been targeting. These are all speculations. These are messages being passed along from one member to the community to another. Why? Because they are afraid of going to the authorities. They're afraid of talking to media. They're telling me, look, we are in grief. We don't know why this happened, especially after they learned, and this is what I'm hearing from the local business owners too, that Guerrero was not the target of surveillance, that he is the father of a 3-year-old girl. Today, our partners in Caracol Noticias in Colombia spoke with Guerrero's father. He was also afraid. He's working with Colombian authorities to repatriate, to be able to come to the U.S., to get a visa, to repatriate his son's body back to Colombia. He says, my son left this country to provide a better life for his daughter and for his wife. I don't understand why this happens. And these are the questions that locals, people protesting here today, are asking too, saying we don't understand why this is happening in our community because we are not the ones saying that ICE should be here removing people to, as you mentioned, what I've heard from protesters and locals, to fulfill any quota, that these are members of their community. And especially if it's somebody who has not committed a crime, who does not have a warrant for their arrest, or that is the wrong person being surveilled. All of those questions are really aggravating this community in Biddeford, Maine, and of course also in Houston and every other community where this has happened. We are trying to piece together from authorities. All DHS has said is that first, they had mentioned that the car had been weaponized. Then the official statement said that they were looking for one person and that Guerrero allegedly tried to get away. The video we're seeing is a car going in circles. We don't have the video of the shooting. We don't have body cam video. This is an investigation that, as lawmakers have highlighted, is becoming incredibly complex.
Lily Luciano with all the details. I appreciate it very, very much. After months of pushing, prosecutors in Minnesota are receiving, at long last, evidence from federal investigators on the deadly shootings during ICE's immigration surge in that state. Attorney for Hennepin County, Minnesota, that's Minneapolis, Mary Moriarty, who's been working with her state's Attorney General Keith Ellison on this matter, joins us now. I'm very glad to have you on the program. What do you have in your possession now, and why do you believe it took so long to get it?
We have some of the physical evidence, including Renee Good's car. We have hard drives containing body cams, statements, and other things. We're in the process, actually, of looking through all of that. So we did get a lot of the physical evidence and the statements that were on a hard drive and also a body cam. Why did it take so long to get it, I think is a good question. When Renee Good was first shot and killed on January 7th, I was on the phone talking with the U.S. Attorney's Office, the FBI, and the BCA, and we were all on the same page that we would handle these cases the way we had handled every other case, where it would be a joint investigation. And then the administration came in and stopped that. Since that happened, as you know, we filed a federal lawsuit in Washington, D.C., asking a judge to order the federal government to turn over the evidence in the Renee Good and Alex Preddy shootings and killings and in the shooting of Julio Sosa Solis. But we continue to have conversations because the local partners here, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office, our office, and the BCA, all understand that the way this is supposed to work is the way it's always worked. So those conversations continued. Several weeks ago, we struck up those conversations again, and we were able to share information. We also shared the information that our BCA had collected with the federal government.
So there are 3 cases you name-checked, Mary, and do you have all the evidence you want in all 3, or just the Renee Good?
We have the evidence in all 3. I can't say whether we have all of the evidence because it's voluminous and we're looking at it. We got one of the hard drives from our DCA who got it from the federal government yesterday. And so that's a lot of body cam. I'm assuming that we have what we asked for and what we need and what they have. But we are in the process of looking through all of that and making sure that we have what we need.
And after that review, is there going to be a determination made possibly to bring charges against anyone involved in the killing of any of those 3 Minnesota residents?
There will absolutely be a determination. Here in Minnesota, if a law enforcement officer takes the life of a community member, it is always investigated. Nobody makes a determination of what happened until all of the evidence is in. We are sent the case. We decide whether to charge or to decline. In Minnesota, once an investigation is complete, that investigation is actually posted by the BCA or the Bureau of Criminal Apprehension online so that everybody can see it. We make a decision about whether charges are appropriate or not, and we make that very transparent as to what the decision is and why, because that's really what community members deserve from our government.
Mary, you have heard my reporters talk about the situation in Maine and the situation in Houston. Both instances, officials there are trying to obtain information from the federal government, information it took you months to obtain. What is your advice to them? And also, what is the disposition of your community now that you have that evidence, because this was so obviously traumatic for many weeks in the December, January, February period of Operation Metro Surge?
I think this was momentous for us and our community yesterday because I think people have been losing hope that there would be any accountability at all. I don't know what our charging decision will be, but I now know that we have the evidence to make that decision. So, our community, like other communities, did not ask for an ICE occupation. And then we all saw what happened publicly. We saw the videos of what happened to Renee Good and Alex Preddy. And there was a call in our community for who is here to help us? Can ICE agents just come into our community and shoot and kill someone without any kind of transparency or accountability? So we understand what they're going through in Houston and Maine. We have actually had conversations with the DA in Houston. We stand ready to help. And I will say that's really important because we were the first to have gone through this. And it's complicated. And we have been through it, kind of building the plane as we've been flying it. And we are here to help any jurisdiction that wants our help to understand the process of collecting evidence, filing the lawsuit to get information. So we stand here ready to help.
Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty. Mary, I appreciate your time very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, O'Keefe joins me now from the White House. Ed, what is the White House disposition on this broader topic of aggressive immigration enforcement, particularly removal operations for those who have received deportation orders?
Well, on this word that they're pausing the vehicle stops, Tom Homan, who of course serves as the White House border czar, said it's not a change in policy, just a pause to make sure that everybody that conducts those kinds of stops is properly trained. He was asked a few minutes ago here at the White House by reporters about the dearth of body cameras in all of these incidents, the one in Texas and now the one in Maine, and he blamed Democrats who held up congressional funding and caused a partial government shutdown earlier this year for delaying the funding that then leads to the distribution of and the installation of those cameras on federal agents who are conducting these operations across the country. But he says they are working to get them distributed as quickly as possible to officers across the country. He noted that, for example, hundreds of them were sent to Minnesota after those incidents earlier this year, and they are working to distribute them across the rest of the country. But it is notable the White House has kept somewhat quiet on this one since it first happened. And, of course, there's this other incident now that occurred today apparently down in Florida in the St. Augustine area where a man was apparently running away from immigration agents and was killed by another car. Reports of that still being sorted out. But this flare-up again now has the real potential to refocus attention on immigration policy, remind voters that are upset about this that the administration continues towards that 2,000 per day arrest goal, and that sometimes in the pursuit of that goal, deadly things have happened to people who were being pursued.